The Florida Panthers make a blockbuster deal for Matthew Tkachuk. Armando Velez of Locked On Panthers is here to talk about that and all things Florida Panthers, as they have been involved in a very busy and eventful offseason so far.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome back to the Locked On NHL Podcast. Gil Martin, glad to be with you today and every Monday as we talk about the biggest stories from around the NHL. Thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. With us now, a pleasure to welcome back to the show, Armando Velez of Locked On Panthers. Nothing big happened this weekend, right, Armando? I mean, Matthew Tkachuk, now a member of the Panthers. Your initial thoughts on this blockbuster deal?
Initial thoughts, like I said pre-recording, was I was getting ready to go to bed, and I get a missed call from my Wednesday guest host, Jake Winans. Missing the call on purpose, not because I didn't want to talk to him. It's just like, I'll deal with it in the morning. And 20 minutes later go by, I don't check my phone again. And then I check it. I check a group chat and I see that the trade happened. And then I check another group chat. They're talking about it more. I check the Locked On NHL chat. I check the Panthers Twitter, everything. And I'm just like, wow, this actually happened for the Panthers. And I spoke about it on Thursday's episode of Locked On Panthers last Thursday, where I was thinking, I don't know how realistic it is to get a Matthew Tkachuk, but we were going to pop some emotional bottles if the trade were to happen. At the time, I said that I don't know if I would give up MacKenzie Weegar or Jonathan Huberdeau in the trade, but hey, nothing we can do now. The trade happened. And they are getting a superstar on their team.
So what does Matthew Tkachuk add to this team, and where does he fit into the lineup? Who do you think they'll pair him with on a line?
He brings youth, lots and lots of youth, because he was playing on the right side when he was with Calgary, but his natural side is the left. So that was where Jonathan Huberdeau was in on the second line with Sam Bennett and Anthony Duclair. Anthony Duclair will be missing at least the first half of the season with his Achilles injury. He won't be back until midseason. So maybe at first we'll see Matthew Tkachuk on that second line, but of course in late game situations we could very well see him on that top line replacing Carter Verhaeghe as well. And if Paul Maurice feels comfortable in those three being the top line, Matthew Tkachuk has played on the right side before, so he can insert him back in on that side, and they'll be on a line together. So Barkov, Verhaeghe, and Matthew Tkachuk sounds like a pretty nice top line for the Cats. He brings a lot of youth to it, and it's just with this trade, Gil. Although it stings Jonathan Huberdeau, the longest tenure Panthers, the guy who has the most points in franchise history, most games played, Calder Trophy winner in 2013, gets shipped out. But the truth is, when you look at the difference in age of Jonathan Huberdeau and Matthew Tkachuk as well, when they both signed their 8-year deals, Jonathan Huberdeau's will be next season, Matthew Tkachuk's is this season. I believe that the tail end of the deal will favor Matthew Tkachuk because of age. So that by the time Jonathan Huberdeau's ends, he'll be 38 years old. So that's what Bill Zito did when he did this trade. And of course, MacKenzie Weegar was always seen as a rental for this Florida Panthers team for this year. And then the Panthers were likely going to tell him, go get your payday.
Well, he now has a new address to try to get that payday at. Are you surprised, the Panthers won the President's Trophy last year, and yet there has been a lot of turnaround on this roster over the offseason. Does that surprise you? And big picture, are you pleased with the moves this team has made?
I was surprised because at first I was thinking that the Florida Panthers were going to keep one of Mason Marchment or Claude Giroux. One of them. They lost both of them. Yeah. And they still have Keith Yandel's buyout on their books for next season, a majority of it at 5.3 million dollars on their dead cap, along with Scott Darlings, who's the last year of his buyout will be on the books this year. A big cap hit in Patrick Hornquist as well, who has kind of shown his age a bit in the last few years, and of course Sergei Bobrovsky's contract. We can't forget about that as well. So with how cap strapped the Panthers are and being unable to move Patrick Hornquist, that's assuming if Bill Zito even tried to move him. It was kind of a surprise seeing this much turnover. We saw a few minor deals a little bit from time to time. Of course, right now, it's $85 million that the Panthers have with the cap, but that $3 million of it is going to come off with Anthony Duclair starting the season on LTIR. So with that, the only way to get a Matthew Tkachuk was to get some salary now off, and Jonathan Huberdeau and MacKenzie Weegar were just that. I said that the move had to make sense in the present and the future. It makes sense in the present and the future, the way Bill Zito made this trade. And like I said, once again, long-term flexibility with this team. Despite a bad goalie contract on the Panthers and having to pay Spencer Knight next offseason, as of right now, the Florida Panthers have $15 million in cap space for next offseason, so that when it's time to kind of improve the decor, which the decor is taking a little bit of a step back. Let's not forget that. They're taking a little bit of a step back, but they get to reset and maybe have an opportunity to go younger, because that would have been MacKenzie Weegar's first year of his new deal.
Any chance that they bring in some defensive help before this offseason is over? I would assume they'd have to move somebody out in order to do that.
Yep, they would have to make yet another move, and the one that we've talked about all off season is Patrick Hornquist on the team, because he's making just over $5 million on the team, and of course, once again, Anthony Duclair salary is going to come off the books with the LTIR space. So it looks like if they do, it's gonna be a cap clearing move. I mean, hey, PK Subban is still a free agent. If he's willing to come to South Florida on the cheap, sure, I take him as on the third pair as well, because that's a veteran presence. And I want to kind of talk about the youth on the Panthers and the benefit that it's going to bring for this team and how this window is extended. In the beginning of the offseason, we talked about the Panthers window being 1 to 2 years before Huberdeau and Weegar will move for Matthew Tkachuk. Now this is a 4 to 5 year window for this team. So even if they regress a little bit next year, they'll still be in a great position to make something work next offseason. And here are the ages of the best players for the Panthers. Alexander Barkov, 26, Sam Reinhart, 26, Sam Bennett, 26, Carter Verhaeghe, 26, Anthony Duclair, 26, Aaron Ekblad, 26, Gus Forsling, 26, Matthew Tkachuk, 24, Spencer Knight, 21, Anton Lundell, 20.
Not bad. It's certainly a bright future with those younger players on the roster. Armando, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they can find the podcast and where they can find you on social media?
They can find me on Twitter at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on Twitter at LO_FLA Panthers. I already have a Sunday episode already launched for the Locked On Florida Panthers YouTube page and on the podcast. So go ahead and listen to that episode where I'll go more deeper in depth of the trade. And I actually go into comparison of Matthew Tkachuk and Jonathan Huberdeau from their most recent season as well, and what fits with the Florida Panthers there. And kind of shameless plug as well, I will be doing a crossover edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast with Jess Belmosto of Locked On Calgary Flames coming up later this week. So if you want to hear the conversation, subscribe to her podcast as well. Subscribe to the podcast that I host as well, and every podcast here on the Locked On NHL podcast.
All right, Armando, always a pleasure. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Gil, as always, for having me.
Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at BetOnline. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news of every league, including Major League Baseball, the NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports wagering information. From live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts, they have you covered. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action. BetOnline, where the game starts.